TBC is launching on February 5th and it's very, very close. Now there's a billion guides on YouTube. All my friends have done it. It's my turn now. And we're going to be covering every single thing that's changing in TBC and what you need to do to actually have the best time possible during the third launch of TBC in 20 years. Now we're going to start with the big one. And these are two topics that tie in together. The leveling experience and the entering Outland launch experience. Now, when it comes to leveling, there's going to be an insane amount of overall competition when it comes to questing, right? No matter how you look at it, the entire questing experience in TBC is going to be a shit show for the first couple of days, especially on a PvP server. Trying to get into Outland is going to be a nightmarish experience for a large majority of people. Even on the PvE server, you will still be struggling and competing for a finite amount of resources with a ginormous population of people. So let's start with the entering Outland, the launch experience, and what exactly that's going to look like for the vast majority of you players. And the realistic answer is, people may not want to hear this, but pre-questing is probably going to save you a lot of time and a lot of hassle and headache. Keep in mind, it's going to take you about 15 to 30 hours of pre-questing in pre-patch to get 1.5 levels, whereas if you were just playing in TBC and you could quest the right way normally out in the open world in a regular cadence and pacing, you would be getting about 1 level every 3 or 4 hours. So you are effectively saving quite some time by just leveling in TBC. Now, if you're a dad with a busy schedule, you're not playing on launch, you're coming 2 weeks late, just level regularly in Hellfire, Zangarmarsh, Terracar, vice versa, and go through all of those zones at your own pace, at your own cadence, and you'll level up just fine. If you are playing on launch, I am sad to say that you are going to have to effectively pre-quest, so you don't have to go through the bullshit of Outlands entry experience, the lag, the server crashes, all that shit. It does take a little bit of time, as I said, but the path is very fast. You turn in a bunch of quests in Orgrimmar or Stormwind, you then hearth to Lighthope Chapel. From there, you fly down, hit every single spot, turn all your quests in, go to your Jumba Isle, turn your final quest in there, then take the flight path all the way over to to the Blasted Lands, and from Blasted Lands, you go down into Hellfire. And then from there, you'll be level 61 to maybe 62, depending on exactly how many pre-quests you do. Some people are saying they've got up to 80 pre-quests done. They've saved everything. A Nyxia head turn in, head of Assyrian, Nefarian head. They've got everything stacked up, completely and absolutely stacked to the brim with turn-ins. That's not going to be the average person, right? So expect to get about level 61 pretty realistically. Getting as high as level 62 is possible, but let's start. There are other videos for that stuff if you want to go down there. Now, once you do hit 60 to 61 and you want to stay ahead of the curve, the fastest, easiest way to do this is to dungeon spam. And what I mean by that is you go into your ramparts. If you're in a decent group, you'll be locked out very fast. You do some questing on the other side of Hellfire, and then you come back later on and start doing, Blood Furnace, etc., and going further and further in. Dungeon spamming to 70 is going to be the fastest, least headachy way of leveling unless you're a phenomenal leveler and you are completely ahead of the curve. Because keep in mind, one of the biggest things with leveling is competition. Between PvP, between open world farming, everybody trying to get a specific resource, a specific thing. It's going to be kind of a pain in the ass to do any kind of leveling for at least about that first 3, 4, 5 days. Now, there is 2 things I need to mention about leveling before we end this section. The gold you get from leveling at max level, as well as the questing and the reputation you get from those quests to get your reputation to Exalted. If you save all your Hellfire quests and then you do them at max level once you're already honored or revered, there's a lot of experience, a lot of reputation experience there that can help you get to Exalted to get your Prebis. I am playing a Warlock and a Prot Pally. The sword you get from the Thrallmar reputation, the Honor reputation, is phenomenal. It is Prebis for a lot of classes, especially if you're not going to be able to get gladiator gear, for example, because you're not a good arena player, you're not a good PvP, in general, you don't want to do that grind. Saving some quests for that end game experience will make your life a little easier. Now, at the end of the day, you will be dungeon spamming regardless. If you want Exalted, you will dungeon spam. There is no way around that. A lot of quest lines and a lot of things have a finite amount of quests for a finite amount of XP, reputation XP. So you will be dungeon grinding regardless. So if you are trying to min-max and be as efficient as possible, pre-quest, dungeon spam, and then quest at 70. Now, with regards to the gold, if you quest at 70, just Shadow Moon Valley and Negran are going to give you about 5,000 gold just from the max level quest rewards. So all that gold that gets increased once you're max level, because they're not giving XP anymore, will get you your epic flying, some of your consumables and craftables, and it's going to make your life overall a lot easier and a lot more smooth, because you won't have to grind that 5,000 gold. Now, the good thing about TBC in regards to gold overall is that there really is not that much hassle in regards to consume costs and prices. If you are a crafter, things will be expensive. Everyone already knows it's going to be expensive. Let's just get that out the way. The amount of bots and open world farming for resources like primals and all that stuff, it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be smooth or efficient. And unless Blizzard somehow addresses the entire botting issue with the resources, you're cooked. So unless you're buying gold or you're a streamer being given gold, farming is going to come from, for a lot of people, for a lot of regular people, questing at max level and or dungeon spamming and, you know, getting a couple of resources here or there and doing stuff of that nature. Now though, we are going to move on to PvP. Now I need to give you all a caveat. You can stack honor right now in pre-patch. Get max honor, then go buy honor gear, level 70 honor gear. And you know, then you can use that honor gear to have an easier time in arenas, so you can stack higher points for your arena points. But I need to give you all this very, very important caveat. You cannot get your PvP gear in time for raid. Even if you have the highest arena rating, and 5s gives the highest, you are looking at about 3,000 honor points. That is one piece of gear. It is going to take quite some time to get full gladiator gear. But if you are a PvPer and your goal is to PvP, you don't really particularly care about raiding in this context, because there's a 2-week wait from launch, February 5th, to raids opening on the 2 weeks afterwards. So when you consider all that, if you don't care for PvP, you can skip this section and go to the next one. But if you do, the optimal way to do your honor and your arena gear is right now in pre-patch, max out your tokens, max out your honor. You get your 75,000 honor and you get your tokens 100, 100, 100 if you can help it and save it. Because unlike in pre-patch, it's not 3 tokens or 2 tokens per gear piece. It's 10, 20, 30. It's not cheap. Gear is expensive, and if you want to get PvP gear, you need to stack up on that stuff right now. If you've already done all that, you already got your PvP gear ready, you're already fully ready to lock and go and just launch into it and let it rip, you're going to be competing with very, very sweaty people in the first season, the first launch experience of PvP. Every time it's the most popular, a lot of people are going to get farmed for points, but you start off with 1,500 points. So long as you get in your 10, 15 games of 5s, in the span of about 10 weeks, you'll have full gladiator gear and weapons, right? Because even if you were to lose every single 5v5 game, you'll still have about 1,300-ish points, you know, give or take. You don't have to do about 10, 15 per week to get your points. And that'll give you about, in about a span of 10 weeks, about 10,000 plus honor points, arena points in this context. And then you can buy a whole bunch of arena gear. So even if you're bad, this is still something you should do every week just so you get your points in. And keep in mind, the difference between 1,500 rating and 3,000 rating is, at 1,500 rating at 5s, you get 1,400 honor. At 3,000 rating, you get 1,600 arena points. The difference is 200 points. So the sweatiest players will get their gear slightly faster than you, but you're all getting gear around about the same pace. Now though, we are moving on to Prebis and Raiding. Now in regards to Prebis, the thing you guys have to keep in mind with Prebis is that you have crafting and farming. So for example, a lot of classes, bis gear is crafted. For example, as a warlock, you have spell strike, you have frost weave, you have your gear that you need to craft. You need to get the recipes or find the person with the recipe and have them craft it. For example, the bis braces for a lot of casters is an open world recipe drop that once it dropped is a craftable. So whoever gets that recipe is going to make an insane amount of gold, because they're going to say tips optional, but they're going to want 10, 20, 50G tip if they even allow it to be non-tip, like, you know, tippable. They might just charge 50 to 100G per person they craft it for. So, crafting is BIS for a shit ton of classes. It's an absolute necessity. Now, the good news is, the farming portion is not as bad as it is, for example, in Classic. Like, you don't actually have SGCs and Hodges, which are genuinely terrible to get. You also have the gear you get with your badges. And you get badges from the get-go. For example, there's the icon of the Silver Crescent. You have different things, you know, the Khadgar's knapsack that you can buy with your badges. And that is going to be really smooth and really good for a large portion of the player base to be able to go and farm their gear. Some of the people's Prebis, for example, the Maghari helm for Warlocks is a quest line in Hellfire Peninsula. So there's actually a lot of really good quest items that are almost Prebis and are just marginally worse than the peak crafted Prebis or the peak epic Prebis that you can find in dungeons. Overall though, you are going to want to do your Prebis grind because it will make your raiding experience overall a lot better. A lot of people will try to skimp out on this, and sadly with the state of the player base, a lot of people don't really want to have those early shitty pugs where everything is terrible and like bad. They're going to be gear checking, pass checking, log checking. It's just simply what it is. It's how the player base has evolved. It's just modern at this point in time World of Warcraft. We just have to simply accept it for what it is and play around that. If you've got a guild or a good community who is casual and doesn't care, amazing. But if you're even remotely sweaty, even remotely in a mid-level guild or a, you know, upper-level guild, they're gonna have expectations for the gear, the resources, and the grind you put into the game to make sure you are ready to go and let it rip at the launch of Karazhan, Gruul, and Magtheridon on the 19th. So with that all said, you are not going to have an incredibly difficult time going out in the open world and farming. Well, I mean, yes, you are. If I'm talking about open world farming, this is going to be a nightmare. What I meant was, when it comes to going in dungeons and heroic dungeons, it's going to be overall a decent experience, nothing too bad, and a lot of reputations have really good gear. For example, Cenarian has a great ring, there are neck pieces, trinkets, there are capes, there are weapons, so many classes of options around the world, from reputations, whether it comes from, you know, heroic spamming, gear drops from heroic raids, open world drops if you're lucky enough to get them. There is a lot of and world bosses, but I don't want to talk about world bosses because I don't think they're instance, and we don't know if they're instance because Blizzard hasn't said anything about them being instance. So if world bosses are open world, you're likely never going to see a gear drop from them, so don't even bother with it. But if they are instance, like a lot of classes, BIS weapon is from world bosses. So if you're lucky, if we're all lucky, and they instance it, so much really good BIS there for your guild to go and get and everybody to go and farm together. If it's open world, I'm not even going to cover it, because again, very few guilds are going to be able to access it, especially on a PvP server or a PvE server. So now that we've covered Prebis, we've covered PvP, we've covered gold farming, and we've covered leveling, I do want to go back onto open world farming and professions just a little bit more. Professions, while very important to your Prebis and making sure you're raid ready, is going to be kind of problematic because you need primals, you need resources, you have your transmutes, you have your cooldowns, for example, tailoring. There are going to be people, thanks to the boost, who have 10, 20, 30 ults ready to let it rip from the get-go, all capped at a specific location, so every, you know, couple days they can log on, craft their gear. The cost of all the tailoring resources are going to tank. They're not going to drop drastically, but primal, mooncloth, shadow cloth, and all those things, foul cloth, whatever. All those things are going to tank in price. Instead of being 70 or 100 G per, it's going to be 30 to 50 G. So if you have a couple of tailoring mods, for example, me, I've got 3 alts that are full tailoring, 300, and when it drops, I'm going to go park all 3 of my characters. Well, they're going to be level 70, so I'm not going to park them, but they're all going to travel all the way down, get my shadow cloth so I can craft my frost weave, because I'm a warlock, I'm with instruction, but then I likely will change it to spell strike, or, you know, a spell cloth or anything else that makes more money later on, because it's not a super big quest chain to change it over. Or maybe I'll just open up with spell cloth or primal mooncloth and then sell them and buy my shadow cloth for cheaper. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do, but I'll figure that out once I actually get into the expansion. But in regards to the crafting though, I should clarify, it ties into the open world farming, resources, primals, farming, water moats. The amount of bots that are going to be sitting in every single lake, every single potential location, is going to make any kind of farming on launch experience genuinely a terrible experience. Even if you find a good spot without bots, good luck with the PvP. Whether you're farming fire, water, whatever, it is going to be an absolute goddamn nightmare. It was the same in 2021 back when TBC first launched. The bots weren't even as bad back then, or maybe they were, I'm not really sure. All farming was a nightmare, disastrous, and overall shitty feeling and experience. And I have a modicum, a small sliver of hope that they are going to change and fix this. But I would not count on it, and I would just expect that you're going to have to pay exorbitant prices for these resources so you can then craft it for your profession, so you can then have your Prebis, so that you can then get into raiding. And raiding, it's the big thing of TBC. Just like Arena is the big thing for the PvP side of the player base, raiding here is the ultimate experience for a large portion of the player base. And Karazhan, Mag, and Gruul are post-nerf. They are drastically easier. On the PTR, the only time I struggled with killing Karazhan, Gruul, or Mag was running with my homeboys San Medina and Jerome, because for memes and content purposes, those were dog shit raids. Otherwise, having pugged with other content creators, having pugged with them as well, and still clearing, as well as just pugging with randoms and not making it a content guild, not making everybody sweaty, just getting regular people and just regular blues, the default PTR gear, we still killed Karazhan, Gruul, and Mag with zero issue and zero problems. The raid is a lot easier, it's a lot more tolerable, so the restrictions aren't going to be as sweaty. For example, for Mag or Gruul, they're not going to go, do you have this, and this? But they are still going to want you to be prepared to raid, to have some gear, to look decent, so they're not getting carried, because the gear competition is absolutely insane. My recommendation is find a guild and join a guild. I know that might be hard for some people, but it's absolutely the best way to play, because hosting a pug, finding people, every week dealing with the BS of that situation, you are gonna want to go into raid with a good, like-minded group of people, so you have an overall good time, and you're not stuck here struggling and having a miserable experience. In regards to Karazhan, it is a 10-man raid. Gruul and Mag a 25-man. If you are in a guild, keep in mind there's going to be people that are playing on alt or whatever, so you guys can run 3 Karazhans, or some people will sit a couple Karazhans to make that rotation not so bad. But to give you all a very quick summary now that we've done with the video, is entering Outland, gonna be a shitty experience, at least for the first day or two. Then you're gonna want to either skip the launch experience by pre-questing. If you're not pre-questing, wait 5 to 7 days and then go back to quest, you'll have a much easier time. So you either skip it or you just go in there and brute force it. Either way, it's gonna take you a couple hours to level. Then you get into 62.5 upwards, either dungeon spam, or you quest in the world if you're ahead of the curve and have a good time, or you quest later on. And you miss out on gold if you're questing. If you don't care about the gold, go ahead and quest, do Nagrand, do Shadow Moon Valley, do Blades Edge Mountain, do all the zones, have a good time. If you care about the gold, leave it to level 70. Yet, I think the overall gold for doing every zone at max level is 7,740 gold, which is a lot of gold, right? If you do every single zone at max level. And keep in mind, 2 zones is 5,000 something of that. So every other zone combined is just about 2,500-ish gold, give or take. And that's not counting greens or random drops you get. Maybe you get lucky with a blue or a recipe, for example, the bracer recipe for every caster. You could make good gold from there by, just doing everything at max level. Then with PvP, if you don't have full gear right now at level 70, all the arena players are going to have full level 70 PvP gear right off the rip, and you're going to get farmed because they have resilience gear and you don't. Nonetheless, you just have to do 15 games a week, 10-15 games, get your rating, get your 1,200 to 1,400 points doing 5s, and I recommend 5s once again, because 5s is the way to go, because it's the easiest and the most honor arena points awarded. And then from there, in 10-15 weeks, you're full beast, geared up and ready to go and have a good time. Again, the Prebis grind, professions and dungeon farming. For professions, open world farming, resources are going to be very competitive, so keep that in mind. You go to dungeons, you do your heroic spam, you do your reputations, you get a lot of gear, and then if you're able to, you craft a lot of gear as well. And then from there, you get into raiding, And that is TBC summarized, everything you need to know going into TBC. I did a video about the best classes already. You can check that out right over here. Have a good time. If you like this video, like and subscribe. If you hated it, understandable, dislike and subscribe. But leave an interesting hate comment. Don't leave anything half-assed. We do things with passion on this channel. Thank you all. Ebonhard out. Peace.